is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Well, good morning, Hot Zone. I'm Chuck Holton, and I'm in Tapachula, Mexico, the southernmost city in Mexico, right on the Guatemalan border today. I am here continuing on my investigation and reporting for the border crisis. It's we had a really fun day yesterday. We have been tracking this group of migrants, some Haitians, from Colombia all the way up through the Darien Gap, all the way up through Costa Rica and the rest of Central America. And we caught up with them again here. One family in particular, the Jeudy family. And it's a mother and two teenagers, Michael and Madesi. Let's see, Michael's 13 or 12, and Madesi is almost 16, not quite. But very interesting and fun family. It's been fun getting to know them. We've been tracking them, like I said, all the way up through Central America. We gave our numbers to Madesi before she entered the Darien Gap, and then she's been sending us messages whenever she gets Wi-Fi. They're a really, for what they've been through, it's really amazing to spend time with them because they're just kind of footloose and carefree and happy like teenagers are. They've been through some real difficulties. It's been absolutely horrific, some of the things that they've had to face. They've had to see friends of theirs die in the jungle. They've narrowly avoided rape. They've been robbed many times. Poor Madesi telling us the story yesterday about how her mother begged the robbers not to rape her, not to rape Madesi. By telling them that she's a virgin, she shouldn't be touched that way, and giving them her cherished jewelry instead. Pretty powerful stuff. The interview was all in Spanish. Madesi, although she's Haitian, she grew up in the Dominican Republic and then in Chile. We found out more about that story yesterday. That was so interesting. Madesi and her brother stayed in the Dominican Republic with family while their mother went to Chile to work for 5 years, and they were without their mother. And then she sent for them. Madesi was 12, Miguel was 10, so this is just a couple of years ago. And they took a plane to Suriname and then rode buses from Suriname illegally, crossing borders all the way into Brazil, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Chile. Can you imagine sending your 12-year-old and 10-year-old together by themselves to do something like that? I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling to Americans, you can imagine, that anybody would do such a thing. But that's kind of normal in this part of the world. Kids grow up fast. Kids are given a lot more latitude, and I kind of actually like it. I mean, I would love. One of the reasons I moved to Panama was that I wanted my children to have more freedom to explore and be a kid like I was. Just run around town, go get yourself in trouble, and find a way to get yourself out of trouble. Explore and not have to be play dated to death, and not have to, have mommy and daddy hovering around like helicopters all the time to make sure that you're safe. That's not the way I grew up, and I don't think it's good for kids. I like the idea of free-range children. And boy, Madesi and Michael, without a doubt, they're free-range children. However, what's interesting is that now that they're together with their mother, she is extremely careful with them, and in fact won't let them leave the house at all unless they are with her or another adult. So even though Madesi's 16 now, especially for a cute little 16-year-old girl, Mom knows how dangerous it can be. She knows what kind of things can happen because they watched it happen on their trek coming up here to the north. So Medici spends her days in their tiny little apartment with no furniture. They got one chair for the whole family. They have a TV and they have Wi-Fi. So Medici tries to do Duolingo on her phone and learn English. She watches a lot of television and she doesn't get out much. She doesn't have any reading material, no books, nothing. Of course, they couldn't, they left Chile with pretty much just the clothes on their back, and most of that got robbed. So they don't have, she has really nothing to stimulate her mind except for what, you know, her iPhone, which, you know, that's not the healthiest thing ever. So one of the things that the Hot Zone is going to do with the money that we raised this month through Patreon, and I'll talk about that in a minute, is we're going to try to go find some reading materials for Medici and Michael. Something that they can, you know, get into. Something, I'm going to get them a Bible for sure. We'll get them maybe some English books or something that they can start to work on their English a little more. And maybe just some magazines or something that they can look at so that, you know, they can have some mental stimulation. They're getting ready to start their trek from Mexico up to the United States. You know, we talked about this yesterday in our interview with Medici, and I said, what would you say to Americans who are rightly concerned that there, you know, a couple 100,000 people a month flooding across our border illegally, coming to, you know, take what they can get from the United States? And she said, well, I understand that they would be concerned, but I don't want them to be worried because we're not coming to do harm. We're just coming to try to find a better life, and we just want to work and be able to make money. In saying that, she kind of, you know, makes very clear and gives the lie to the fact that they're escaping persecution. The fact is, they're not being persecuted here in Mexico. They could very easily get a job and make a life here in Mexico. They weren't being persecuted in Chile, for that matter. Her mother was working. Now, they couldn't get papers. They couldn't become naturalized citizens or anything like that. And so that shows two things. Number one, they're not under duress. They're not being persecuted. They're coming for economic reasons. They're very clear about it. The other thing that it makes clear is that American immigration policy is actually some of the friendliest in the world. People come there because they can easily get in, because they can easily get residency more easily than they could other places. And so those are push and pull factors, but they're not the ones that everybody talks about. The push factor everybody talks about is that they're fleeing violence and oppression. They're not. And the pull factor that they talk about is that America is the freest country on earth. It's not. It's not about the freedom. It's about the economics, and that's just point, period, end of story. For 99.9% of the people who are coming north into the United States, it is simply economic. That's all. Getting deep into this story has been a really interesting process, and as I talk I do interviews on the radio and television and stuff, I start to realize, I was talking with another journalist last night whose job it is to cover this part of the world, and I realized she is completely clueless. If you don't come down here and meet these people, speak to them in their own language, start to you know, sort of worm your way into this community, there are so many nuances that you miss. And I'm even learning more and more every day about, I've been studying this Darien Gap crossing for many years and trying to just suss out exactly what that's like and what happens and how they go and how they survive and what they eat and, you know, everything like that. And I learned things yesterday that I've never heard before. that the women going in there, some of them bring morning after pills because they know they're going to get raped. And for them, it's just the price of admission. They don't want to be raped, they don't like to be raped, but they know it's going to happen, and they're willing to go through that to get to the United States of America. You know, hearing stories like that makes you kind of think, wow, I mean, these people they are earning it for sure. I still don't think that they should come in illegally. I think we ought to have a way that they could, you know, more safely and legally come to the United States if they want to come and work. If we need the workers, let's bring them in. Even better, we should work hard to try and develop leaders in the developing world. One of the reasons that I'm such a big proponent of my friend Graham Davis and his ministry, which is called Advance Panama, is that that's exactly what they're doing. They are keeping young people in Latin America by training them to be leaders and business people and helping them get a leg up in life here and improve their family. This is where they have their support. This is where their family is. This is where their culture is. This is where people speak their language. Rather than making this very dangerous journey all the way, you know, thousands of miles north to the United States and becoming a burden on the system there, well, why not become an asset to the system here? Why not train people to be an asset here instead of having to leave? I asked Madesi if she ever wanted to go back to Haiti, and she said, yeah, that's one of the reasons we're coming to the United States, because when we were in Chile, we couldn't leave and go visit our family and come back. Once we get to the United States, we will eventually be able to do that. So it's interesting as we get to know these people better. Again, what they're doing is illegal, and I don't support it. I think that it would be better for Madesi if she stayed in Dominican Republic and, you know, applied her substantial talent and drive there rather than come to the United States. And I harbor no illusions that the United States is the only place where somebody can get ahead. It's not. It's just not, especially nowadays. I try to explain to Madesi and her family what we pay in taxes in the United States, how expensive everything is in the United States. They don't understand that. They have no idea. And the simple fact that wealthy people in the United States are leaving to go elsewhere, while the poorest people on the planet are coming into the United States, ought to tell you something about the direction that the U.S. is headed, at least, and the opportunities that are available elsewhere. In today's digital economy, all we have to do is teach English to the whole world, and they could all work in the United States without coming to the United States if they wanted to. With hundreds of thousands of tech jobs available that are not being filled because America's men are sitting on their couches and playing video games, there are plenty of people who would take those jobs around the world if they could speak English and could work remotely. The working remotely part is a done deal. After COVID, we've proven that that's possible. The learning English part is going to be the hard part. So that's my 2 cents. We've got a lot coming. It's just that it's all in Spanish, and so I'm going to go ahead and put up Madesi and Michael's interviews just in Spanish, and if you speak Spanish, you can listen to them in whole. I'm going to try to get them transcribed and subtitled, and then we'll put them up for you where you can actually read every word that they said. It's a fascinating interview. You should really check it out. And we're going to spend some more time here in Tapachula interviewing these migrants and going down and seeing how the system has changed over the last couple of months, well, year or so since I was here last. So stay tuned. We got a lot more coming. I'm Chuck Holton. Thanks for watching The Hot Zone. And oh, by the way, Patreon is going away, in my estimation. We're migrating away from Patreon, and we're going to migrate over to locals.com, which is a platform that's not going to cancel me for saying something they disagree with, and it's going to work better than Patreon. So if you're over at Patreon as a subscriber, thank you very much for that. I would appreciate it. If you'd go to Locals, once I post the link, I just have to get signed up over there. So that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching The Hot Zone.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Live Fire Media.
Copyright 2021.